Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're heading north, way north, to the Arctic. It often feels, distant,
Yeah.
but it's actually becoming really central to global geopolitics.
Absolutely critical.
And you're listening because you want the real story, the key shifts, without getting bogged down.
And that's what we aim to deliver. We've got quite a range of sources today.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at Canada's latest Arctic foreign policy from just December 2024,
Okay, very recent.
plus some really good analyses from the Council on Foreign Relations from
Right.
23, and then some forward-looking stuff, an April 2025 piece on the Arctic trilemma, the transpolar sea route specifically.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, and another from March 25 looking at conflict risks, plus even a Reddit discussion on the Northwest Passage and Bering Strait for some different perspectives.
Got it. So the mission today, understand this changing Arctic map
Exactly. The competing interests, these new sea routes popping up.
and what it all means for the global power balance,
Right.
especially, for the U.S. and its allies.
That's the core of it.
Okay, let's dive in. What's the fundamental force changing the Arctic landscape?
Well, you really can't overstate it. It's climate change. It's the big one.
The melting ice.
Precisely. The European Parliament's projections, among others, show Arctic sea ice continuing to shrink.
And pretty fast, right?
Some models suggest we could see ice-free conditions, at least in summer, maybe as early as 2030.
Wow, 2030, that's soon.
It is, and that has huge implications, especially for shipping, new pathways opening up.
So we're talking potential shortcuts across the top of the world. Could they actually compete with, say, the Suez Canal?
They absolutely could, potentially. The Georgetown Security Studies Review breaks down three main routes.
Okay.
First, the Northern Sea Route, the NSR, that runs along Russia's coast.
And Russia controls access there
They administer it, yes. Then there's the Northwest Passage, the NWP,
through Canada.
through the Canadian archipelago, yeah. And Canada claims those as internal waters.
Which isn't universally accepted, I gather.
That's...
A point of discussion, let's say.
Hmm.
And third, this emerging one, the Transpolar Sea Route, or TSR.
Transpolar, so right across the middle.
Exactly, straight across the central Arctic Ocean.
That one sounds really different, not tied to one nation's coast quite the same way.
That's a key point.
Hmm.
And the potential efficiency gains are pretty staggering.
How so?
Georgetown Security Studies Review, again, they project ice-breaking ships might use it by 2030.
Okay.
And regular cargo ships maybe during summer by 2045.
45.
And the time savings. They estimate it could cut travel distance compared to Suez by, well, maybe up to 41%.
41%. Okay, that's obviously grabbing attention.
Huge strategic interest, naturally.
And it's not just about future shipping lanes, is it? Major players are already making moves.
Oh, absolutely. This is happening now. Trends Research and Advisory points out China declaring itself a near-Arctic state.
Near Arctic. That's an interesting term. It is. And they're pushing this idea of a polar Silk Road.
Right.
Their analysis even mentions some pretty assertive language suggesting force might be on the table in this, quote, scramble for new strategic spaces.
Forceful language.
And we know China sent its icebreaker, the Xulong, across the TSR back in 2020. That's from the Georgetown Review.
So they're testing the waters, literally.
Seems like it.
And then there's Russia, obviously a major Arctic player already.
A huge presence. Trends highlights their significant military buildup over the past decade.
What kind of buildup?
New and upgraded military bases, airfields, advanced weapons systems deployed. It's substantial.
And we're seeing more activity under the ice, too.
Yeah, that paste and text source mentioned increased submarine activity from several nations.
Competing exercises, too.
Yes, and that's led to some near-miss incidents, apparently. Things are getting crowded.
So this paints a picture where that old idea of the Arctic as a zone of cooperation is, well, fading.
That seems to be the trend. Trends notes Russia's suspension from the Arctic Council after the invasion of Ukraine.
And the council was always meant to be about cooperation, right?
Exactly. It focused on science, environment, indigenous issues, deliberately kept military and sovereignty stuff out, as Trends pointed out.
So that's a major shift.
It is. And Global Affairs Canada basically says that whole concept of Arctic exceptionalism, the idea it was separate from global tensions, that's just not reality anymore.
And besides the strategic positioning, there's the scramble for resources, too.
Definitely. The pasted text source talks about a race to extract resources.
Like where?
Svalbard is a key example cited. It's Norwegian, But this old treaty gives other countries commercial rights.
Oh, Russia's mining there.
Yes, and there were reports of Chinese attempts to buy land. It creates friction.
And sanctions must be playing a role.
They are. Trends mentions Western sanctions, especially EU ones, hitting big Russian energy projects like Arctic LNG too.
Okay, so that complicates Russia's plans significantly.
It certainly does.
Which brings us to the U.S. and its allies. How are they responding? Let's start with Canada. Given the Northwest Passage runs right through their territory, their policy seems to be changing.
It really does seem to be. That new Arctic foreign policy from December 24 from Global Affairs Canada, it puts a much stronger emphasis on defense and security.
A shift from before.
Yeah, previous frameworks, like back in '97 or even the 2019 one, they talked more about international cooperation, environmental issues, a broader idea of security, including human factors.
So more hard security focus now.
It seems so. The 2024 policy calls the U.S. Canada's greatest ally in the Arctic,
Okay.
and it stresses deeper collaboration for North American security.
Is NATO mentioned?
Interestingly, the 2019 framework already called NATO a key multilateral forum there, so the thinking was maybe already shifting.
But the new policy is more explicit about defense.
Yes, though it also acknowledges, kind of intriguingly, the uncertainty around potential shifts in U.S. policy down the road.
Okay. And the U.S. itself, what's their Arctic strategy looking like?
Well, sources like Trends and the U.S. Army talk about focusing on restoring Arctic dominance.
Dominance. Strong word.
It is. Building up a capable military presence is key. The Air Force, with the Northern Warning System and rapid response, is crucial there, as Trends notes.
But there's a gap compared to Russia.
That's what the Georgetown Security Studies review suggests. They estimate Western military capabilities in the Arctic might be lagging Russia's by maybe 10 years.
A decade. That's significant.
It is a noted concern.
Now, Greenland keeps coming up in these discussions. Why is it so important strategically?
Well, firstly, as part of Denmark, it's an Arctic Council member, as Trends reminds us.
Right.
But geographically, its location is just incredibly strategic.
How so?
Think about the routes, and the Reddit discussion brought up a really interesting point about the Bering Strait.
Between Alaska and Russia.
Exactly, that narrow passage. It could act as a major choke point, especially at the exit of the Northwest Passage.
Ah, okay. So if the Northwest Passage becomes more usable,
does that give Canada more leverage over the Bering Strait? That's the question raised in the Reddit thread.
could it affect U.S. and Russian control there? Or maybe push it towards being international waters?
Those are the possibilities floated. But, someone in that discussion also pointed out the Bering Strait already has a big military significance.
Right.
And intense times, maybe longer, safer routes get prioritized over speed anyway.
So it's complicated.
Very. But the key takeaway from that discussion was the linkage, the Northwest Passage and the Bering Strait are kind of tied together for full Arctic transit potential.
Okay, which circles us back to that Transpolar Sea Route, the TSR, since it's mostly in international waters.
That's where a lot of the future competition might focus. Georgetown Security Studies Review calls it a key area, potentially the optimal trade route in the Arctic.
And Russia's trying to stake a claim.
They suggest Russia's using its military presence near the central Arctic Ocean to try and assert influence over the TSR.
What about Russia and China working together on these routes?
That's a major factor, yes. The Georgetown Review definitely highlights the potential for Sino-Russian cooperation.
We mentioned China's icebreaker voyage.
Exactly. Back in 2020 along the TSR, that's seen as significant.
So the argument is the U.S. needs to get in the game.
That's the conclusion from the Georgetown Review. The U.S. must actively compete for the Transpolar Sea Route.
Both for economic reasons and to counter potential rivals.
Precisely. To capitalize on the potential and manage the strategic challenges.
So, pulling it all together, the Arctic isn't this frozen, quiet place anymore.
Not at all. It's really heating up, politically and strategically, even as the ice melts.
It's this convergence, isn't it? Climate change opening things up.
Resource competition intensifying.
And this major strategic and military positioning by Russia, China.
And the U.S. and allies trying to respond. It's a complex mix.
And for the U.S. and allies like Canada, it means they can't just watch. They need a proactive strategy.
Absolutely. Canada's new policy reflects that urgency, that shift towards security, needing stronger partnerships, especially with the U.S.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has helped map out that complex picture a bit more clearly.
We hope so, too. It's a rapidly changing domain.
So, key takeaways. Climate change is the big disruptor, opening new routes like the TSR.
Yep. Fueling competition for resources and influence.
and making it crucial for the U.S. and allies to be actively engaged and adapt strategically.
Couldn't have said it better.
Which leaves us with a final thought for everyone listening.
Considering how fast things are changing up there,
Hmm.
what are maybe the unexpected ways the Arctic could shake up global security and trade in the next 10 years?
Ooh, unexpected impacts. Good question.
And linked to that, what should the absolute top priority be for nations trying to protect their interests, their power in this new Arctic frontier?
Definitely something to chew on. We encourage everyone to check out the source materials for more detail. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.